My heart shattered when my daughter kicked me out for standing up to her husband. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air felt thick, almost stagnant, as I stood in the living room, my body frozen, while she glared at me with a mixture of anger and betrayal. It was as if shadows danced on the walls, whispering secrets I couldn't grasp. Her voice cut through the silence like a knife. You don't get it, do you? Just stay out of it. My hands trembled, fingers twitching as I tried to process her rejection. How easily love can twist into disdain. Just hours before, we were laughing over coffee, her bright smile lighting up the room. Now, her face was a closed door, the truth hung heavy in the air. Her husband was a man of troubling secrets. I saw him for who he was, and I couldn't pretend otherwise. Yet, my daughter was blind, caught in a web of affection that shimmered like glass, beautiful until the moment it shattered. The tension crackled between us, creating an unbearable weight. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, mixing fear with determination. Memories flooded my mind, bedtime stories, soccer games, the sweet smell of her childhood. And now here we were, two souls adrift in a storm, facing each other as strangers. I had sacrificed so much to protect her, only to be met with this cold silence that I forced myself to speak, voice shaking. He's not the man you think he is. That was my undoing. Her eyes widened, disbelief rippling across her face. A breathless moment hung between us, heavy with everything unsaid, and then she turned, cutting me off from her world entirely. It felt like losing her all over again that I stumbled outside, the chill biting at my skin. My breath clouded in the air, but it wasn't just the cold. It was pain, sheer agony of loss, like a knife twisting in my gut. I felt alone, standing on the edge of something dark and unknown. My heart raced as questions swirled in my mind. Would she ever see the truth? Would she come to her senses, or was this just the beginning of a greater divide? There were whispers behind me, concerned glances from neighbors who never understood the fragility of family. They could see the cracks forming, but could they feel the weight of it all? What happened? I heard one murmur, but their curiosity turned into judgment, and I felt like an outsider, a ghost in my own life, and as I turned to leave, the world around me blurred. The only thing clearer was the tension between love and hate, the struggle between protection and alienation. My hands were still shaking, a knot tightening in my throat. What did the future hold for us? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The night wrapped around me like an embrace, heavy with the chill of unresolved grief. I stumbled down the empty street, each step echoing my despair. The moon hung in the sky, a silent observer of my heartbreak, casting a pale glow that illuminated the path of lost hope. I could hear the rustle of leaves, the distant sound of laughter from some unseen gathering, a reminder of the joy I once shared with my daughter. I felt like a ghost, forever wandering in search of the remnants of our bond. Inside my chest, a battle raged between desperation and reluctance. I wanted to reach out, to call her and explain how much I cared, how I only wanted her to see the truth and not suffer at the hands of someone unworthy. But every time I thought of her, the memory of her scornful gaze froze my fingers, paralyzing my voice. As I made my way home, I took a detour through the park where we used to play. The swings creaked softly in the dark, swaying gently in the wind, as if beckoning me to relive those innocent moments. I leaned against a tree, its bark rough against my back, and closed my eyes. Tears spilled down my cheeks as I recalled her laughter, the way it filled every corner of my heart with light. Just then, I noticed a figure sitting on a bench nearby, wrapped in a worn blanket, staring into the distance. It was an older man, his weathered face etched with stories of his own. In that moment, he turned to me, his eyes reflecting a weary kindness. "You look like you've lost something," he said, voice raspy yet comforting. I blinked back my tears, surprised by the softness in his tone. "I've lost someone I love." His gaze didn't flutter away, but held mine steadily, as if he understood the weight of my pain. That he nodded slowly, and I could see the lines on his forehead deepen with empathy. "Family can break your heart like nothing else. It sounds like you spoke out of love." That I managed a weak smile, grateful for his words, and for the fleeting moment, a warmth wrapped around my heart. "I just wanted to protect her," I whispered, the honesty spilling forth. Sometimes, love means standing alone. It takes courage to be that voice, especially against the ones we care about. He paused, looking past me into the shadows. "But know this, hope can sometimes find its way back through the cracks of pain." That I sat down next to him, craving the camaraderie of shared suffering. He shared his own stories of estrangement, how he lost his daughter to the allure of a life that he couldn't accept. But through it all, he had learned to keep his heart open for the day she might return. As we spoke, a bit of the weight in my chest lifted, even if just momentarily. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of a figure approaching. My heart dropped. It was my daughter, her face illuminated by the streetlights. She looked troubled, tears shimmering on her cheeks, as she scanned the area like she was searching for someone. "Mom." Her voice trembled, resounding like a fragile melody in the air. In that moment, I felt the thrill of hope ignite within me, but it was quickly drowned by anxiety. What had brought her here? I wanted to leap to her side, pull her into an embrace that would mend the gaping wound between us. I could sense the air shift, we were at the precipice of something significant. Then her eyes caught a glimpse of me sitting there. The surprised expression flickered across her face before morphing into uncertainty. I stood up, ready to bridge the gap, but her expression hardened again, shadowed by confusion and fear. "Why are you here?" she asked, a desperate hitch in her voice, but before I could respond, the man beside me spoke up, "Because sometimes love requires us to face what we fear most." My daughter flinched, glancing at the stranger, then back to me. The tension in the air thickened with unspoken words, possibilities hanging like a fragile thread between us. What would she say? I could feel my heart pounding, the weight of everything hanging in the balance. The chilling night suddenly seemed to close in around us, echoing my deepest worries. Would she turn away again, or might this moment be the beginning of her understanding? And as I stood there, trembling between hope and dread, a realization washed over me. No matter how much pain lay between us, the love I felt for her would always be worth fighting for. But the question loomed ominously: where would this path lead? Would this night end with broken dreams, or was it a glimpse into a chance at healing? The moment hung in the air like a fragile glass ornament, shimmering on the cusp of shattering. My daughter's face was a canvas of conflict, the storm of emotions swirling behind her eyes. I stepped forward, my heart racing with every breath, but the moment I opened my mouth to speak, the words bottlenecked in my throat. "Please, just listen," I said, desperation lacing my voice. "I care about you, and I only wanted what?" She interjected, anger mixing with hurt. "To ruin my life. To take away the only happiness I've known. You don't understand anything." The words cut through me, each one sharper than the last. I felt the weight of her resentment pressing down like a suffocating fog, but I couldn't give in to despair. "I'm not trying to take anything away from you. I just want you safe, to see the truth that he's not who you think he is." The stranger beside me shifted, leaning forward, as if he too understood this delicate dance. Sometimes, we see the world through the eyes of those we love, missing the warnings that come from outside. She narrowed her eyes at him, her lips pursed in a defensive line. "You don't have any idea," she spat out with venom. "Who do you think you are, judging my life?" I felt a lurch in my stomach as she turned back to me, leaving no room for hesitation. "Tell me, Mom, why should I believe you? You kicked me out as soon as I stood up for him. You chose to abandon me." The accusation struck with the force of an avalanche, burying any remnants of composure beneath grief and guilt. I was scared. I gasped, my voice breaking. Scared for you, for what you didn't see. I was trying to save you from pain before it started save me. She echoed, disbelief wrapping around her words like a vice. You're the one that hurt me. With every accusation, I felt as if she was pulling the very fibers of our shared history apart, one thread at a time. I thought of our years together, our laughter, the moments of pure joy that had helped create who we were. In so many ways, it felt like she was disappearing into the darkness, slipping through my fingers like sand. But my heart refused to relent. What if this man sitting beside me had it right? What if hope was waiting just on the other side of this argument? If only I could find the right words. I love you, Vanessa, I said, forcing a steadiness into my voice. And I have to believe that love is stronger than this. I don't want to fight, I want us to be a family again. Her expression shifted for a fleeting moment, and I caught a glimpse of the little girl who had once sought refuge in my arms. That memory ignited a spark of determination within me. Remember when we used to talk about dreams? About what life could be? I always wanted to see you happy, not just today but tomorrow and every day after. I made mistakes, God knows I did. But I never stopped loving you. She paused, the tension around her shoulders slackening just slightly. I held my breath, feeling the trembling connection between us. But then, like a sudden storm, her defenses ramped up again. And now you think him what? Just some foolish child throwing my life away. Her voice wavered, betraying the hurt beneath her bravado. Maybe I'm not trying to be saved by you anymore. Maybe I've decided to save myself. The ground shifted beneath my feet, and I could only stare as she took a step back, away from me, her expression morphing into something pained. You don't even want to know what I'm really going through, do you? She glanced briefly toward the stranger, then back to me, her voice tinged with bitterness. You've made it clear you didn't care to look deeper. You just saw a monster under my bed. The weight of her words was almost unbearable, but I stood my ground. That monster is real, Vanessa. You're pulling away from me, but that doesn't mean you have to pull away from your truth. Her eyes flashed with resentment, yet beneath her anger lay a pulse of vulnerability, the raw ache of the girl I had raised. You don't know him like I do. You think you're doing this for me, but all you're doing is driving me away. The crack in her facade widened, and in that instant, I saw so much more than an impasse. I saw a point of inevitability. As she turned to leave, tearing the last sliver of hope from the moment, I called out, wait. What if I'm not the only one who stands in between this? What if he's not just a good man but a dangerous one? She halted, her back to me, shoulders rigid. What do you mean? But before I could gather my thoughts, the pressing need to reveal my fears, a chilling sound echoed from the shadows nearby, a muffled voice that belonged to someone I never expected to see. Intrusive, unwelcome. Her husband was there, lurking in the dark, watching us, and suddenly, the air grew thick with dread. Every ounce of courage drained from me as his smirk cut through the silence, and I was left wondering if I'd just awakened a hidden storm that would obliterate everything I held dear. I stood frozen, locked in a moment that stretched into eternity, my heart pounding like a war drum against my ribcage. The shadows deepened around the figure that emerged from the darkness, his presence a palpable chill in the air. Vanessa's husband, Derek, loomed just beyond the edge of the flickering light, the smirk on his lips a tight seal on the secrets that could unravel us all. Fancy seeing you here, he drawled, his voice slick like oil. The confidence in his tone wrapped around him like a cloak, and I felt the blood drain from my face. The warmth of the conversation with Vanessa evaporated into the night, replaced by an icy fear that threatened to engulf us. Get away from her, I managed to utter, summoning a thread of defiance despite the shivers racing down my spine. This is between Vanessa and me. Derek's laughter echoed strangely, as if he found humor in the fear that hung heavy in the air. You think you can just walk in here and dictate her life? You don't know what you're delving into, old lady. You're putting the pieces together the wrong way. I'm the only one who gets her. Vanessa's body tensed at his words, and I could see the doubt wrestle in her eyes. What are you talking about? She asked, but there was an edge of uncertainty in her voice that cut deeply. Derek stepped closer, towering over me as if he aimed to fill the space that had shrunk between us. "She has dreams, you know," he said with feigned affection, turning his charm on her like a weapon. "But it's not her responsibility to live up to your expectations. She's learning to build her own world, away from the weight of your failures." I could feel the words press against me like a physical force. Failing her, it was a phrase that brought back all the memories of my frantic attempts to shield her from pain, yet here I was, a shattered vessel before both of them. "Vanessa," I pleaded softly, fighting to maintain our connection. "You have to see what he's trying to do. He's trying to manipulate you, to twist our relationship into something dark and unhealthy." Derek's eyes glinted with malice, and I realized he thrived on the discord festering between us. "You think she'll listen to you after this slander? You don't even see the beauty in her independence," he snapped. "All you can do is peel back layers until you think you've uncovered some truth, but you've only destroyed what's left of her hope." "Hope?" I echoed, my voice rising. "This isn't hope. This is a prison disguised as love. You know that." Vanessa winced, her vulnerability bleeding through her stubborn exterior. It was a crack in her armor I hadn't expected, and I could sense the internal battle waging within her. "You don't understand," she mumbled, almost to herself. "He cares about me in ways you can't see." "Does he care when he pushes you away from your family? When he fills your head with lies?" Something compelled me to step forward, determination battling against fear. "You're my daughter. I will always love you more than anything, even if it means standing here, fighting for you while he tries to pull you into shadows." Derek's expression soured, his mask slipping as he hissed through clenched teeth, "You think you can protect her? You're just a faded memory, a ghost from her past. You don't belong here anymore." "Neither do you," I shot back, my heart racing with adrenaline, the raw energy igniting the atmosphere. But I felt a tremor in my limbs, a fear of pushing too far, of shattering this fragile moment completely. Suddenly, Vanessa stepped between us, her voice trembling yet steady. "I have to choose who I want to be. Maybe that isn't either of you right now." The breath left my lungs, a mixture of hope and heartbreak coursing through me. Her words hung in the air. Could she really be so torn? I yearned to tell her that she didn't have to choose, not between him and me, or the person she once was. But everything felt dangerously suspended, wrapped in a veil of uncertainty. Derek's smirk returned, more dangerous than before. "See? This is real life, sweetheart. You can't keep running back to her home. You have to create your own family." His voice dripped with illusion, a flickering mirage that ensnared her heart. "And what will you do?" I spat at him, driven by a mother's instinct to protect. "Keep her isolated until she forgets who she is, who we are. Is that how you love her?" But as I spoke, a new fear crept into my chest. What if she did choose him? What would I do? The image of my daughter slipping back into the dark clutches of this man sent a chill racing through my veins. Without warning, she turned to him. "You promised me a future, Derek. You promised I could have it all." My heart splintered. In that moment, there was a new depth to her vulnerability I hadn't seen, a realization that pierced through my fear. "Vanessa," before I could finish, the fluttering of pages filled the air. A newspaper that had been carelessly tossed at our feet now drew our attention. Its bold headline screamed a truth we all had to face: a story about a local man with a notorious past, his picture plastered beneath a headline of violence and deception. My world spun as I realized that Derek's facade might not just be charming manipulation, it was built on dangerous lies, and my daughter had unknowingly bought into it all. "Derek," I gasped, searching for his face, only to find his expression twisted with malice as he gripped her arm, tight. "What is this?" Vanessa's eyes darted from me to the article and then back to Derek. The shock of the revelation rattled her, urgency flickering in her gaze as the truth of what had come to pass lingered like smoke in the air. In that all-consuming moment, a new conflict ignited. I waited, breath held, heart pounding, praying it would not be the last chance I had to bring her back to the light. I staggered back, the intensity of that moment suffocating me. The newspaper lay crumpled on the ground between us, the chaos of Derek's reality stark against the stillness of the night. My heart raced, caught between hope and despair, the realization hammering into me that my daughter's life was tethered to a man whose past reverberated with darkness. Derek's grip tightened on Vanessa's arm, and I could see the conflict dancing in her eyes. Fear and confusion flickered as she tried to reconcile the man she loved with the truth that now gnawed at the edges of her beliefs. That you're twisting this, he hissed, forcing her to look at him. It's nothing but lies. They want to pull you away from me, from what we've built. You know I'm here for you. You can't let them take that from you. In that split second, I saw how easily control worked its way into someone's heart, how love could become suffocating when masked as devotion. Vanessa, think. I pleaded, my voice trembling. He's hiding behind a facade. This isn't just about you anymore. There's danger in ignoring the truth, but the more I fought, the more her gaze flickered with doubt, and I realized that in this moment, I was losing her all over again. The doubts I had tried to quash blossomed anew. What if my efforts were driving her away? What if Derek was right, that I was just a haunting presence in her life, a reminder of the past she longed to escape? Let her go, I said, my tone as steady as I could muster, the words feeling like molten steel in my throat. If you truly love her, you'd let her stand on her own. You won't be able to keep her. This is not love, Derek. He stepped closer, the air around him thickening with threats unspoken. You think you can sway her with your desperate cries? She doesn't need you, not now, not ever. Open your eyes, Vanessa. These people will drag you back into a life you fought to leave. Her breath hitched at his words, the shadows of her uncertainty slinking back into her heart. I had to be the voice ringing true. Vanessa, you don't need to choose between us. We can find a way through this. This is about your freedom, your happiness. Freedom. Derek scoffed. She should decide what her happiness is, and if that means you're out of her life, then so be it. You're suffocating her. The accusation cut through me, a knife twisting in my gut. I had devoted everything to her, yet here I stood, accused of the very sin I strive to avoid. Please, my voice softened. Don't you want to know who you really are? Your dreams, your soul. Not just some hollow shell molded by someone else's vision. She wavered, and for a heartbeat, Derek lost his grip upon her just enough for the ember of hope to reignite. But the moment was fleeting, the weight of the past pressed down, and I could see the momentary solace fading into uncertainty once again. Suddenly, the distant sound of sirens shattered the night, a mournful wail rising from somewhere beyond the shadows. The noise sliced through the thick tension, drawing both our attentions. I took a step closer, my heartbeat synchronizing with the growing urgency around us. Listen. I urged. You have the power to change your life. You're not just a victim to be saved, and you have the choice to escape that I don't need to escape. She shouted, a fierce resolve igniting within her. I need to decide for myself. Derek is here for me. No. I interrupted, my heart racing as desperation gripped me. You think you're choosing, but he's choosing for you. You're not even making this choice fully, you're reacting to a fear he instilled in you. Don't you see how profound this is? In that moment, a glimmer of clarity flickered in her eyes before it was swiftly replaced with confusion, struggling against the foreign truths crashing over her like waves. Derek seized that moment, his own voice sharp as glass. This is manipulation, Vanessa. The sirens are here because of you, because of the questions they ask about your life. You think they care about you? They just want to ruin what we've built. Stop. Vanessa shouted, pulling away from him, her voice rising in pitch. You don't get to decide. What I'm feeling. A glint of something fierce crossed her face, and the shadows I feared creeping closer began to flicker in the glow of her honesty. I saw the fierce young woman from my memories peeking through the despair, the girl who once chased butterflies and believed in brighter tomorrows. Just as I dared to hope, she turned back to Derek, and her brow furrowed with confusion. Why didn't you tell me? Why is this in the paper? Why didn't you ever mention your past? Derek's expression shifted to one of barely contained rage, his face twisting in ways I hadn't seen before. This isn't about me. The past doesn't define your future. Don't let them poison your mind. In that instant, the sirens grew closer, and I realized Derek was trapped in the web he had woven. The danger he embodied was no longer hidden. But as I stood in that tense standoff, unable to predict the outcome, I felt Vanessa step further back from him, her hand trembling as she held on to the railing behind her. The words batted around like the waves crashing against the shore. Maybe I need to figure out who I am without you, Derek. The air hushed, reverberating with sides taken and heart straining against the pull of choices waiting to be made. My breath caught as the real depth of what she had just said sank in, her path crystallizing amid the chaos, but just then, fate took a sharp turn. A police cruiser swung into the driveway, lights flashing ominously in the darkness. The realization hit me harder than any blow. Derek's past was catching up to him, and this could lead to everything unraveling. In that heartbeat, I felt a deep surge of terror and a flicker of hope all at once. As the officers emerged, I knew our time for deciding was running out. Vanessa. I called, my heart racing. Choose wisely before it's too late. A moment hung suspended, eternity stretching between us, and as the officers approached, I wondered if we'd unravel the truth together or if it would slip through our fingers like sand, leaving only the echoes of shattered hearts. I stood frozen, the air thick with the anxiety of impending decisions as the officers approached, each step resonating like a countdown in my chest. I could see them surveying the scene, taking note of the tension wrapping tightly around us like a noose. My mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead. What would happen if they took Derek away? What would that mean for Vanessa? Stay calm, I whispered to myself, though I could feel a storm brewing beneath my surface. I dared to glance at her, her face a kaleidoscope of emotions: fear, anger, and an undercurrent of something more vulnerable, the raw instinct to protect what she thought was love. In that moment, she was caught in the delicate balance between breaking free and clinging to the familiar. Don't you dare think about this, Vanessa. Derek said, his voice laced with a desperation that clawed at my heart. This is all a trap. They're here to ruin us, to dismantle everything we've created together. I could see the inner turmoil dancing in her eyes, the conflict mirroring my own struggle. I wanted to reach out to her, remind her of the vibrant girl who never shied away from chasing her dreams. Yet, the words caught in my throat, choked by the fear of yet another rift between us. She opened her mouth, perhaps to speak, but the police officers finally arrived, their presence shifting the weight of the world on my shoulders. Ma'am, are you Vanessa? One of them asked, his tone steady yet firm, allowing no room for misinterpretation. That I am, she replied, hesitance creeping into her voice, and I could almost hear her heart racing, fueled by the fear of what came next. That we need to know if you feel safe here, he pressed, his eyes darting between us, gauging the delicate dynamics in front of him. Is there a threat to your safety? Derek stepped closer to her, his voice a reverberating whisper just beneath the officer's questioning. Vanessa, you know they're just out to create drama. You're safe with me. Don't entertain this, okay? Her brow furrowed deep, and in that moment, hope flickered once more. I don't know, she stammered, her gaze shifting between the men who represented authority and her baneful relationship. I thought I could trust you. The officer tilted his head towards her. You can take your time. You don't have to rush into any decisions, we're here to help. That I ask that what you think? Derek cut in, his insistent tone cloaked with anger. They're not on your side, Vanessa. They just don't understand. I watched her face contort in conflict, the truth warring against the comforting lies she had fed herself for far too long. She was teetering on the brink, and I felt the tidal wave of emotions crashing against the shoreline of her conviction. Derek, it's okay to let someone in. I urged gently, desperate to prevent the rift from swallowing her whole. You don't have to protect her from them. Protecting her means letting her choose her path. Tension prickled in the air as Vanessa's body quaked, as if the weight of our exchange was pulling her apart. At last, she stepped away, a small gesture that meant everything. I need time. Derek, livid now, shifted closer to her, whispering words meant to draw her back into his embrace, but she faltered before him, a butterfly caught in a storm. Though my heart ached at the sight, I felt embers of warmth. She was finally asserting herself. Don't you get it? She spat, her voice rising. I don't know who I am anymore. I thought I had a life figured out, and now I feel lost. In that moment, I glimpsed the woman she could become, the fierce soul breaking free from the chains that tethered her to Derek. But just as those thoughts blossomed, the reality of Derek's past threatened to eclipse even the smallest slivers of hope. "Ma'am," the officer said, trying to draw her attention back to reality. "You're in control of your own narrative. If you want us to remove him, we can assist you, but you need to express what you want." Just as she seemed to drift towards clarity, Derek reached for her hand, desperation oozing from every gesture. "Don't listen to them. You'll regret this." "Decision, regret?" she echoed, now looking at him with questioning eyes. "Regret is not knowing if I can trust the person I love. You've hidden your past from me. How can I believe you love me?" The silence that followed was like the stillness before a storm, and I knew the moment it was only a heartbeat away from erupting. Then, in what felt like an eternity, Derek turned from sweet to violent. With a sudden motion, he slammed his hand against the railing, making the officers instinctively take a step forward. "You'll always be a burden, Vanessa. You can't escape who you are." In that instant, I saw a tangled web of rage and fear in the depths of his eyes, the way shadows crested just beneath his skin. The words hung heavy in the air, unsettling and jagged, and I saw wonder turn to panic in Vanessa's face. My heart sank as desperation flooded in the strength of her spirit, so close yet so far, threatening to collapse under the weight of all that had been said. And just then, the sound of sirens returned, a chilling reminder that the past was clawing its way back to the surface. This wasn't just about her choice anymore, it was about survival. "Vanessa, whatever happens, know that you aren't alone," I whispered, urging her to remember our bond. "You have the choice to reclaim your life." But before she could respond, Derek's phone buzzed violently in his pocket, causing us all to jerk at the sound. He fumbled for it, and in his haste, dropped it on the ground. The screen cracked as it hit the pavement, and the contents flashed its message. My eyes widened as I caught a glimpse of the screen reading, "They're closing Injit out before it's too late." The dread thickened around us, drawing tighter, and I felt the air change, the night shifting into something darker. I knew that this was a turning point, each breath charged with uncertainty, but one thing was for certain: choices had to be made, and quickly. Even if the truth could set us free, the danger lurking behind Derek's facade was far from over. The night wrapped around us like a suffocating shroud, the sirens growing louder, transforming the scene into a strange and surreal tableau. I glanced at the officers, who were now taking measured steps toward Derek, their eyes trained on him, the tension palpable. "Vanessa, listen to me," Derek yelled, but the fierce glimmer in our eyes turned him into a ghost of his former self. "Don't let them turn you against me. You know I love you." Her expression softened momentarily as memories washed over her, the beginnings of their love, the laughter shared between them. But the reflection of fear that followed quickly extinguished that flicker of warmth, leaving shadows of doubt in her wake. I could see her waging a war between her past affection for him and the fear that now suffocated her heart. "Vanessa," I said, stepping closer, hoping to guide her through the fog of confusion. "You deserve to feel safe. You have every right to live your life without fear." "Safe?" Derek scoffed, his anger bubbling just beneath the surface. "What a farce. This is just another manipulation. Do you really think they care about you?" "Derek, stop," Vanessa shouted, her voice cutting through the cacophony of chaos. "You aren't the only one who's scared. I am scared. Every day, I've been scared of losing myself in this mess." The officers exchanged concerned glances. They could sense the overwhelming weight of the emotions, the urgency of her plight. In that moment, for the first time, I saw clarity breaking through the storm in Vanessa's eyes. But with clarity came vulnerability, the excitement of possibility coupled with the sharp chill of doubt. "Tell them the truth, Vanessa. Please," I pleaded, my voice steady yet trembling on the precipice of real emotion. "You have the strength in you to rise above this." Derek took a step backward, his disbelief manifested in his stance, the air now thick with anxiety. "You really think they want to help?" he growled, bitterness twisting his words. "You're nothing without me, Vanessa. No one will love you like I do. No, she replied softly, her breath catching in her throat. The trembling in her hands spoke to the reality she was fighting to embrace. I need to love myself first. But before any of us could react, the sound of more sirens echoed in the distance, foreboding and urgent, and Derek's expression morphed from panic to something desperate and twisted. That I won't let them take you, he exclaimed, rushing toward her with wild eyes. But the officers stepped forward, hands instinctively moving toward their belts to ensure calm. Stay back. I won't let you take her. This is our life, Derek. I shouted, fear for both Vanessa and him shooting through my veins. This isn't the way. As he loomed, ready to sweep her away into shadows, she anchored herself, strong and resolute. I choose my life, she declared, grounding herself in her truth. You don't get to dictate what that looks like anymore. In that moment, as her bravery sounded like a clarion call, I saw a flicker of the girl I once knew. She was no longer hiding from her own eye of the storm. It was as if the universe pressed pause around us, jolting all present into a reluctant understanding, but the clarity didn't hold. With a swift movement, Derek reached out and grasped her wrist, his grip a frantic plea cloaked in aggression. You're making a mistake. The officers mirrored my own frantic heart. Let her go, one said, voice firm but coaxing, promising safety, breaking the tension like a dissolving brick wall. That I stepped forward, desperate to take control of the chaos consuming our time. This isn't love, Derek. You can still choose differently, I implored. Don't you see you're losing her for good? His gaze darkened under the weight of truth, the walls he fortified tilting ominously. You have no idea what I'm capable of, he snarled, a hint of desperation lacing his voice. Then show me you can change. Fight for her, not against. I pleaded, hoping to summon the person I knew once lay buried beneath the layers of darkness that clutched him tightly. He hesitated, just for a sliver of a moment, before the shift in his stance compelled the air to crackle like lightning. You think him the monster? The quiver of vulnerability peeked through the ferocity as if a moment of introspection might just be on the cusp of transformation. You think him the reason she's broken, but that was enough. Vanessa's eyes flared with fire as she wrenched free, the ferocity of her spirit scorched against Derek's grasp. I decide my fate, and I refuse to be your prisoner anymore. Just as the officers moved in, ready to intervene, a deafening sound split through the air. A car peeling out of the alleyway, tires screaming against the asphalt. My heart sank into the depths of my stomach as a flash of realization ignited. Someone was here for Derek. That it was a visceral twist in the narrative, and I felt dread fill the space where hope had just blossomed. As the figures emerged from the car, fierce and energetic, my pulse quickened. The tempest was only beginning, and this wasn't an escape from darkness but a descent into unknown chaos. And before the officers could react, Derek unleashed a primal roar, the last measures of his control slipping away as he shouted, "Run! Run, Vanessa!" I reached out toward her as she remained frozen, panic crystallizing on her face, and I knew in that moment it would take everything to survive this night. The night was not merely about Derek's lies but about an ever-evolving battle for more than just choice. It was a fight for love, freedom, and the truth that would ultimately unravel them both. As chaos erupted around us, I could only flounder in the storm. My heart ached for Vanessa, caught in a nexus of fear and love, while Derek spiraled further into despair. The exhilaration of liberation was tinged with terror as I realized the depths of the struggle unfolding before us, and new figures materialized in the shadows, their intents shrouded in darkness. The car doors swung open, revealing men clad in leather jackets, hardened faces etched with authority and an unsettling familiarity. They exchanged glances with Derek, a connection that teetered on the edge of loyalty and destruction. As they approached, a sickening pit formed in my stomach, premonitions twisting like vines around my heart. "Derek, let's go." One of them barked, urgency palpable in his tone, as if their arrival was meant to salvage a drowning ship. He turned his gaze to me, an avowal of chaos etched deep in his eyes. "You really think you can save her? Stay away from her." I shouted, a sense of protectiveness ignited within me. But my voice was lost in the tumult, overshadowed by Derek's "Please, please, Vanessa." He gasped, desperation slicing through his bravado. You don't know what they are capable of. But Vanessa stood resolute, her fear transmuted into a fierce defiance. I'd rather face the unknown than return to the prison you've built. Her words held a weight that seemed to momentarily stun everyone, including the men who had arrived to aid Derek. The officer closest to us shifted nervously, the tension coiling tighter. Derek, we're here to help you. You need to let her go before this gets worse. You're not thinking clearly. The atmosphere thickened, murky with uncertainty, as Derek's crazed look morphed into something darker, a flicker of rage and fear merging into an electrifying cocktail. Help. You think they want to help me? They only care about keeping me under their control, then fight them with us, Derek. I implored. This has to end. It doesn't have to be like this, but just as the words slipped from my lips, a cacophony erupted from the slick pavement, a blaring horn from one of the figures, followed by a chilling beeping sound. The group's intentions suddenly sharpened into focus. They weren't here for Derek at all. They were here for power, to reassert a darkness he had fought to escape but couldn't seem to shake off completely. As the officer inched closer, attempting to diffuse the turmoil, the new arrivals pulled out their phones, capturing the scene, igniting waves of dread. My breath caught, realizing the stakes were much higher than I had anticipated. This was no simple confrontation, it was a volatile showdown, and our lives were caught in the crossfire. Vanessa, listen to me. I shouted, grasping at the slivers of clarity still resonating within her. This isn't just about Derek anymore. We need to think about how we survive this, together. Fate, however, had its own plans. A sudden flash illuminated the scene, a figure fracturing through the darkness like a spectral ghost, someone I recognized with a gasp. It was Claire, my estranged sister, her determined gaze locked onto Derek with unyielding resolve. Let her go, Derek. She bellowed, power emanating from her being as if she had tapped into a wellspring of bravery. I marveled at her appearance. She had always been the stronger one, yet we had fallen apart over the years, unspoken words and simmering resentment hanging between us. But in that moment, Claire stood fearless, an embodiment of strength that could weave through the chaos. Had she come to be a rescuer? Were we both too entangled in our own struggles to provide each other the salvation we desperately needed? Claire, stay out of this. Derek shouted, his voice cracking, radiating a vulnerability that echoed through the crowd. Not a chance, she retorted, unwavering. You don't get to hurt her anymore. Burning tension electrified the air. Vanessa turned to me, eyes brimming with uncertainty. What do we do? Trust yourself, Vanessa, I urged, every ounce of my being focused on steering her away from the abyss. You've already chosen your path. Let's be strong. Together. But as the darkness closed in, something inside me shifted. Fear clawed at the edges of my heart, an old knowledge whispering that standing here might be just as dangerous as running away. Maybe my past mistakes had caught up with me, maybe the universe was laying bare cruel lessons in this swirling mess. Derek's gaze darted violently between each of us, a frenetic energy swirling in his chest. This isn't the end, Vanessa. Either way, you'll come back to me, he growled, and I felt the cold grip of menace tightening around my throat, and then it happened. A decisive movement. Claire lunged forward, positioning herself between Vanessa and Derek, her fierce defiance granting hope a fleeting moment to erupt from within the walls of despair. Get away, Claire. He fought back, but there was fear braided into his anger now. Agitation sprouted as fragile and raw as the situation we faced. In that moment, I saw it as clear as day. Sometimes the people closest to us were the ones who could break us, and sometimes they were the only ones who could save us. But that truth held a quality of double-edged promise, one that cut deeply. The sirens grew closer, blaring like creatures of the night, merging with the desperation around us. I felt a pull leading me to action, and yet the bone-deep worry festering in my chest whispered caution. Then Vanessa stepped forward, leaning closer to Claire. There's something you're not telling us, isn't there? She asked, eyes narrowed and searching. Who are those men, and what do they want? Suddenly, the air thickened with the weight of uncertainty and unspoken pasts. Claire opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The look in her eyes shifted from fierce to uncertain, and I realized perhaps this confrontation was about to reveal far more than any of us could handle, and just like that, as hope momentarily flickered amidst the chaos, something profound and unspeakable lingered in the air like a portent, a hidden truth that would either uncoil my heart or shatter it entirely. Derek's gaze flickered like a candle in the wind, teetering between anger and desperation. I felt the chaos around us breathe, swelling with tension, as Claire wrestled with unspoken revelations rippling beneath the surface. Vanessa, with a heart so open it spilled over the edges, pressed in closer, searching for clarity in Claire's silences. What do they want? Vanessa's voice trembled, the definitive tremor of fear still clinging to her words. Claire opened her mouth again, this time uncertainty pooling within her emerald eyes. Just as she seemed poised to speak, a swirl of darkness crept closer, the men in leather jackets sharpening their focus like predators honing in on prey. Enough of this. One of them spat, frustration enhancing the roughness of his tone. We didn't come here for theatrics. Derek, you need to make a choice. This is your last chance. The words hung heavily, painting anxiety across Derek's features. I locked eyes with him, and in that brief connection, the world around us dissolved. It was just the two of us, each lost in our spirals of a shared past. But just as quickly, he glanced toward Vanessa, raw worry streaking across his face. The struggle was palpable. This was not just his fight, but the anchor of his entire existence, teetering precariously on the edge. Derek. Claire's voice snapped, pulling him from his trance. You're not a pawn. They're lying to you. She stepped closer, a protective energy radiating from her like sunlight cutting through storm clouds. How can you say that? You don't know what I've done. Derek's voice cracked under pressure, and I saw vulnerability beckoning like a siren. The old ties of family loyalty tugged at him, but the weight of past transgressions chained him to fear. No one is beyond redemption, Claire insisted, her voice steady. You can fight this, Derek. None of us have to do this alone. Amid this charged atmosphere, Vanessa's vulnerability shone through like a beacon. She glanced up at me, her eyes pleading and full of conviction. You believe that, don't you? We can stand strong against all of this? I nodded, urging her to hold firm to that hope. Absolutely. But we must be careful. The stakes are too high for us to falter now. Suddenly, the air shifted again, thickening with an impending doom as the leader of the leather-clad men stepped forward. We're running out of time. You're going to make this choice, Derek, with or without your precious friends. I'd hate for things to get ugly. My heart raced. The moments unfolded like a dark tapestry, threadbare around the edges. Derek's face twisted, caught between momentary resolve and the gnawing fear coating his soul. Watching him sway under the pressure, I was reminded of the day I chose to leave home, abandoning everything I knew to escape an unthinkable situation. But what had that truly changed? Was it an act of courage or a cowardice cloaked in the guise of self-preservation? I stepped forward, defiantly standing shoulder to shoulder with Claire and Vanessa, the pact of family stretching through the heaviness that surrounded us. You think you can intimidate him? I deflected, anger igniting my words. You know nothing about who he truly is. Derek's eyes flicked to mine, confusion quickly followed by a glint of hope. And who am I supposed to be, cared for but caged? Someone who can break free. We can fight together, I chimed in, conviction tightening my stance. The men recoiled at our united front, a semblance of strength flowing between the three of us as we faced Derek's demons as one. But what was truly at stake became clearer then. The cracks in our unity spread wide and deep, and the realization cast shadows across my heart. This confrontation was revealing not just Derek's struggle, but the underlying fears and wounds clinging to each of us. Claire's whispers of past grievances clung to her words as if they were chains binding her to defeat. I had abandoned my role in the family, and here we were trying to forge a bridge amid the ruins, and as the siren's wails grew louder, a siren's call in its own right, a hushed silence fell. The crackling energy that had surrounded us quieted to a whisper, thoughts swirling like the remnants of a storm unraveling. The glimmer of hope flickered, wavering like a flame on the verge of snuffing out. Derek's eyes widened, and in that moment of emotional upheaval, something within him splintered. "I can't protect you all," he breathed, choking back the impending tide of tears. "I can't let them hurt you." And just when it seemed like we might finally uncover the truth binding us together, a shout sliced through the tension, abrupt and sharp, setting our hearts racing. "Derek!" And from nowhere, just as Claire stepped forward to speak, an ominous figure emerged from the crowd, a woman with fire in her eyes that reflected Derek's own. Behind her, shadows danced with the promise of betrayal. "I'm here for what's mine," she proclaimed, and the chill that crept down my spine felt like an omen of doom wrapped in a familiar tone. Derek froze, eyes widening in disbelief as the realization washed over him. The light in Vanessa's eyes faded into shadows, and the fragile bond we had forged just moments ago began to unravel, giving way to uncertainty. An enemy had resurfaced from the depths of our past. A truth once hidden was rising to say goodbye, and I could feel the dark tide closing in. As the moment hung in the balance, with hope and fear coiling in a dance, I could only grip the fabric of my reality, knowing the revelations to come would change everything we thought we knew forever. The world seemed to collapse in on itself as I looked at Vanessa, my daughter, standing at the precipice of a decision that would define her future. Derek's impending doom loomed like a storm cloud, and the woman standing beside him, fierce and unapologetic, had shattered any semblance of control we thought we might have had. "I'm not your pawn, Lexi," Derek hissed, the words escaping his mouth like resentful venom, but he was locked in a web of fear that he had spun himself. "You don't get to dictate my life anymore." The silvery hues of disbelief danced across his face, but his bravado shuddered under the weight of truths unraveling rapidly. "Then be a man who stands against the darkness," Lexi challenged, her voice bold, drawing attention away from the chaos around us. She stepped further into the light, revealing the scars of a battle fought long ago, one that we had all internalized. "You can start by letting her go, Derek. Let her find her own way. You can't control everything through fear. It's time to break free, for both of you." We were tangled in a tapestry of emotions, past grievances, unspoken love, and an unsettling need for autonomy crowded around us, each thread threatening to snap. In that moment, I could see Vanessa's heart clashing with the revolution of truths revealed. A flicker of realization sparked in her eyes, perhaps ignited by Lexi's raw courage, or maybe by the desperate plea radiating from Derek's features. "Derek, do you even love me?" she asked, her voice trembling yet imbued with authority. The question hung in the air, a declaration of war against pretense. "What have you truly done for me but lock me up in your selfish world?" "Love isn't a weapon," for a moment, he faltered, eyes glistening with uncharacteristic vulnerability. "You're wrong," he murmured. "I just wanted to protect you from everything." But his voice quaked with uncertainty, revealing the cracks in his facade. "Protect me?" The disdain rolled off her tongue like bitter poison. "By tearing me away from my family? By hiding who you truly are? This isn't love, Derek." The storm that enveloped him began to relent under Vanessa's relentless truth. I could feel my heart expand, cracking open to let a flicker of light pierce the wounded silence. "You deserve to be more than a reflection of someone else's truth," I called to her, seizing the moment. "You're not just his past or mine, you're Vanessa. You have the strength to carve your own path, to stand free of the burdens placed upon you." The gulf between us seemed to narrow as her gaze locked onto mine, a tether bridging the raging chaos. I could sense something shifting within Vanessa. The girl I had raised was finding her voice, her power. Derek's anger flared, overwhelming his pain, a tempest raging inside. Suddenly, the menacing energy in the air ignited, fear clawed its way back into my heart. "You don't understand what it means to struggle," he bellowed, turning to Lexi, then to me, a whirlwind of chaos in his eyes. "You don't know what I've done to survive. You're not fierce, you're desperate." In the chaos, something deep within me snapped. "No. We're not the ones who have made your choices for you. You wrapped yourself in fear and called it love. But love doesn't drown, it elevates. We're your allies, not your enemies." The words poured from my heart like a soul-altering baptism, as if high tides were washing ashore the fragments of shattered clarity, but desire for control clawed at him, a volatile blend of passion and primal desperation overwhelming everything. "You'll regret this. They will take everything from you," he said, barely holding himself together, balancing precariously on the edge of breaking. I could see the fight flee from his body with every word spoken. Shadows flickered behind him, an echo of the past creeping closer with each breath he took. And in that moment of utmost fear and hope, a revelation seized me. If your love thrives on control, it was never love at all. The realization flickered in Vanessa's eyes, a dawning moment where clarity washed over the chaos. She staggered back, embodying the battle waging within, a fight for her identity clashing with fear's last grip. She dropped her gaze from him, focusing on the sirens wailing in the distance. The truth lit her face, fierce and unwavering. And then she spoke, voice trembling but steady. "I don't want to be trapped anymore. I fought for the wrong freedom. I deserve a life, a choice," she declared, addressing the room, resonating with conviction that echoed against the walls of manipulation that had boxed her in. Suddenly, as if the universe orchestrated it, sirens echoed into the night, a symphony of crisp, frosty clarity, reaching the crescendo that reflected the tumult within. The flashing lights bathed us all in red and blue, a lifeline of justice tumbling forth to snuff out Derek's dark reign. "Vanessa, please," Derek cried out, the tide shifting under him. "Don't leave me. Think about what you'll lose." But her heart had finally found enough courage to confront his desperation. "I am choosing what I want," she answered, her words like a spring of water bursting through cracks in the ground. "I won't shrink to fit your vision of me anymore." Lexi stepped closer behind Derek, standing tall, the specter of strength as she rebuffed him. "It ends here. Let her go." There was no more hesitation, no more need for false bravado. Here now was the juxtaposition of family, intertwined by both blood and compressed memories but now forged on the anvil of redemption. With each breath, the air crackled with the momentousness of choices made. "You're stronger than you've allowed yourself to believe, Vanessa," I encouraged, stepping forward, arms wide open for her return. "We're always here, waiting. You're not running from me but towards who you are." For a heartbeat, time stood still, stretched thin like a thread ready to snap. The police stood as witnesses, waiting for the storm to settle, the tension palpable as shadows danced, circling around an inconceivable truth. In a tide of clarity, Derek's grip loosened. "Just go," he said, a whisper laced with a sense of futility, tears betraying his defiance. "Go back to your family." His voice broke, absence lacing every syllable. Vanessa took a step back towards me, her face catching the hint of dawn, a new beginning unfurling amid the tumult of night. Suddenly, as if the floodgates had opened, she rushed into my arms, embodying that fragile yet fierce girl I had raised, reclaiming her heart that had been torn asunder. Finally, she found her voice. "I'm ready to forgive." It was a declaration, loud and crystalline, sweeping through the darkness. The air fell silent, resonating with the warmth of fresh beginnings. As I held her, the warmth permeating through our shared bond, I felt the world shift, like tectonic plates realigning. Love that had tethered us long enough was rekindling through forgiveness unbarred. In that sacred moment, I saw the satisfaction etched in Lex's face, a triumphant light flickering with an unsaid understanding that she could choose love and strength too. As if an invisible tether bound us all, darkness receded, and the police moved in, ready to confront whatever shadows jumped from beneath the skin of our lives. For love, in its truest form, doesn't just linger, it builds bridges across unthinkable chasms, forging paths unseen until they arrive. As I looked down into Vanessa's tear-streaked face, hope blooming like the dawn after an eternal night, one lingering promise echoed through my heart. "We're together now, forever anchored in love," I whispered, knowing full well the truth would always guide our way. And as the lights faded slowly, illuminating the frailty and strength that danced together in the afterglow of night, I knew that together we would rise on hushed whispers of freedom, breaking the chains that long shackled our spirits. In this tapestry woven with grace and pain, we had finally begun to stitch anew, carving our own destinies together, forever unbound. And as the dawn broke over the horizon, lighting the world before us anew, I held on to her tightly and understood what it meant to truly let go.